London was actually an incredible center for deep learning talent around the 2014, 2015 era. We had a great kind of cluster of AI researchers between UCL, Cambridge, and Imperial, and some great thinkers, some great kind of scientists came out of that era. I was actually speaking at the UBS Innovation Day back in, I think, in 2016, and we got connected with the global CIO and COO of UBS, and they said, "Can you work on this problem for emails?" And we said, "Sure."
Stephen Mackintosh began his career in AI at UCL. After building an AI startup that was acquired by UiPath, he co-founded Karatage, a next-gen investment fund now placing 9-figure bets on ecosystems like Sui and Ton. In this episode, we talk real-world adoption, programmable assets, and the billion-dollar flows shaping crypto's next chapter.
One of the things that people always ask me is like, where's the future of AI in crypto? And I think that this agentic commerce opportunity is one of those places where crypto and the blockchain can really flourish side by side with machine learning and artificial intelligence.
A lot of our audience just to kick off their career and just to graduate. So what would be your advice to the younger generation?
The younger generation is so well poised to create like totally new experiences. What I would say is that all young people should be almost like AI experts today. It's so easy to access technology that I think that your competitive edge against the current workforce is so much higher if you're like a vibe coder or an AI coder at like the age of 21.
Hello and welcome to Build It Up, where AI meets crypto, technology meets humanity, and East meets West. I'm Bill. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to take a second to say thank you for watching, subscribing, and being part of this growing community. But we noticed about 30% of our viewers haven't subscribed yet, and nearly 90% haven't left a like or a comment. So if you are watching this right now and enjoying this conversation, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. Now, let's get into it. Hey Steve, how are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Good, thanks Bill. Good to be here.
Awesome. So to kick off, can you introduce a little bit about the journey of the Karatage? I understand it is a prominent prop investment firm, but what's the history and how you guys team up in the beginning?
Yeah, sure. So Karatage is, as you say, a proprietary investment business. We call ourselves like a prop hedge fund. We have been investing in crypto for a number of years. I'm a co-founder of Karatage alongside my business partner, Marius. Prior to Karatage, I was in artificial intelligence for a number of years. I started an AI company at the University College London AI Research Lab alongside DeepMind.
I was going to say that was the age of the DeepMind, right?
Yeah, so
From a vintage perspective.
London was actually an incredible center for deep learning talent, around the 2014, 2015 kind of era. We had a great kind of cluster of AI researchers between UCL, Cambridge, and Imperial. And some great thinkers and some great kind of scientists came out of that era. We focused on building a natural language processing company.
For which use case?
At the time, the awareness of NLP was not what it is today.
No.
And so a lot of what we did was kind of storytelling and evangelizing about the use cases for NLP. We focused on enterprise use cases and very sensitive kind of private enterprise data. So
like customer service or other use cases?
Yeah, so I think customer service is one of the use cases we focused on, but we went to look at the clients which had like the biggest hair on fire problem in the enterprise, and they were investment banks and commercial banks. I was actually speaking at the UBS Innovation Day back in, I think, in 2016, and we got connected with the global CIO and COO of UBS, and they said, "Can you work on this problem for emails?" And we said, "Sure." So kind of the first use cases that we actually looked at were in the front office, kind of fixed income OTC conversations. Can you identify when market participants are talking about certain trades or certain kind of themes? And can you use that information to sell more and to provide a better client service? So what we essentially created was something kind of akin to a machine learning middleware, which came to be understood and to be coined by the analyst community like Forrester and Gartner as communications mining. And we had some great enterprise customers from, as I mentioned, UBS to Deutsche Bank to asset managers like Vanguard and Capital Group. And we were always trying to essentially identify the root cause driver of knowledge worker activity in the enterprise, and then make those kind of human kind of worker tasks machine queryable and readable and ultimately automatable downstream. That could drive huge lift in operational efficiency, reduce costs, reduce risk. And ultimately, that company that we started was acquired by a New York Stock Exchange listed acquirer. And
which industry the buyer come from?
In enterprise automation, it was
okay.
UiPath. They had
so that's a very clear synergy, right?
Yeah, correct. So there was a huge, kind of excitement around automation around like 2020, 2021. And they were looking to, acquire like, cognitive intelligence assets to bolt on to their robotic process automation efforts. And that was a really great synergy. During that time, my business partner and I, Marius, who came from Glencore, where he ran the coal trading business in Asia, had essentially red-pilled me on crypto. He got connected originally with Vitalik and Gavin at Ethereum to look at pursuing a use case for physical commodities on blockchain. That led to...
That's the first generation RWA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And for many reasons that, that use case wasn't kind of sustainable at that time. At Karatage, we don't just invest in crypto. We have a great portfolio in iGaming, which is the category associated with sports betting and casinos. We also have investments in artificial intelligence companies from my network and also in businesses in the defense industry. So that's the great thing about being a proprietary firm, proprietary capital. You really are quite flexible. You can do whatever you want and whatever essentially makes money. And, we've also been quite an extensive backer of fund managers over the years. We've invested in, I think, about 15 or 16 different venture funds and hedge funds.
Crypto VC and a crypto hedge fund?
A lot of crypto, but also kind of non-crypto as well. I think many people that, know Karatage in the industry, value our relationships. We're a relationship first and a people first business. And I think our brand's based on that. It's based on partnerships.
Awesome. You mentioned you also invest in like 15, 16 venture fund and hedge fund, right? I want to talk about the performance of the vintage this cycle, especially for the crypto VC and hedge fund. A lot of friends talking about the underperforming struggle of the crypto VC. And it sounds like, this season is very different from last season because you have gone through the last season and even the season before, right? Back to 2017, it's like, as long as you're showing up in the industry, your portfolio will be filled with Ethereum and Solana, etc. And last season, you have a lot of portfolio can have 50x, 100x, as long as they can launch. Sounds like, the whole distribution is a bell curve instead of a power law. But this season is like very struggling to most of the VC. And from my understanding, a lot of VCs are kind of, pivot or shutting down in a sense. What is your take on that?
I think that one of the problems with the venture space and or the kind of liquid fund space as a whole is that when you kind of meet these kind of funds and they have various theses at the beginning of the inception, often they don't play out. And what happens is everyone starts just doing the same deals. It's like a consolidation. And that's a problem because you don't have a lot of diversity. And ultimately, the best managers and the best investors outperform the rest. And ultimately, there is a bit of a mismatch there because over the past number of years, there's probably about $10 billion of liquid fund capital experienced net redemptions every year based on performance. So we do need like new money into the system.
So in net redemption, you mean like most of the limited partners, they're disappointed about the performance and just want to retrieve the money?
I think in a lot of hedge funds, I think you've seen kind of numbers going down.
None of them perform as good as Bitcoin, I guess.
Trying to outperform Bitcoin over a 5-year or 10-year time frame is actually quite difficult. And I don't think most managers can do that.
Especially, I think, in equity market or regulated market, at least most of the people, they are kind of treated in a fair term. But, come back to the crypto token VC, I just feel like the front-running game doesn't work anymore. In last season, because the interest rate is very low and in such a QE macro environment, most of the project, as long as they can launch, you can enjoy the liquidity buffet globally. And I guess that's part of the reason my take, most of the VC really performing back to the season of 2020 and 2021. But this season, I heard about some saying, if a VC fund missed the Ethena or pumped up fund, you guys invest and Sui, etc., like there are only a bunch of home run deal. And if you miss that, and then the whole fund doesn't perform, which is very brutal to most of the crypto VC.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we're lucky to be investors in Ethena and in Pump.Fun and Sui. So I think, we've performed very well, but I do agree with you that it's been quite hard for others to perform. And I think also, the liquid markets in crypto are quite PvP. There's only so much money moving around all of these different altcoins. One of the things that people always ask me is like, where's the future of AI in crypto? And I think that this agentic commerce opportunity is one of those places where, crypto and the blockchain can really flourish side by side with machine learning and artificial intelligence. In Sui's object-oriented model, you can have multiple tills, infinite tills, all transacting at the same time in true parallel scale. And I think that's the future we will see with agentic commerce.
That will be more for e-commerce, including e-commerce as well.
Yeah, for e-commerce, but also for kind of, agentic commerce. As an investor, you want to try and bet on the future and bet on the breakout use cases. And agentic commerce is one that I'm very excited about. We had looked at the phenomenon of the digital asset treasury companies, firstly with the Bitcoin companies that were trying to recreate what Michael Saylor had achieved in different local regions. So we invested in one called Orange, which is in Brazil. And we looked at a few others.
How is the MNAV multiple in Brazil right now?
Yeah, I think Orange is a great team backed by an incredible founder. And they've got a really unique regional play there where I think they'll do very well. I haven't checked the latest today, but I think they're set for some success. And I think these regional plays, like we saw with MetaPlanet, have been very successful at speaking to a local audience. And I think, the Brazilian market's very exciting, and that's why we kind of back that team. But ultimately, we saw, an opportunity in the market with these kind of DATs to actually co-create a vehicle that could be a market leader with a foundation.
So you want to be a sector champion, right? Instead of to copycat other...
Yes. So rather than just being an opportunist who just wants to acquire just tokens and stake them passively in the market, we actually saw a much bigger opportunity, which was to go to market with a foundation in direct partnership and to build something that looks like a bank, a quasi-bank. It kind of presents new and novel trading design implementations. So I think that in the future, we might see a lot of these HFT firms, these trading firms partnering with Sui to achieve new and interesting trading strategies, to build and co-create new interesting trading venues.
And on top of that, I wonder, you mentioned, HFT is your investor, but also, want to be your institutional user to the Sui ecosystem in future, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to deploy their, investment strategy, etc. Having said that, I wonder, do you think right now the mindshare of the Wall Street from the deployment, from an institutional user perspective, is still heavily on Ethereum, slightly on Solana, but not very being educated in Sui, etc. Like, what is your take on that, and how do you see this as an opportunity or a challenge?
I think it's definitely both, right?
Yeah.
I think that Sui is a very young blockchain. I think it's only around 2.5 years old. And so the kind of brand awareness is much lower compared to an Ethereum, for sure. And definitely a little bit lower than a Solana, just based on the time they've had in the market. What I would say is that in Wall Street, the awareness is still mostly around Bitcoin. Maybe warming up to Ethereum. And, I would say that the opportunity for L1s like Solana and Sui is now. We've got to tell that story. We've got to educate Wall Street on what these high-performance blockchains can enable. One thing I will say, in addition to the kind of the Bitcoin awareness, is that there is insatiable demand for stablecoins. We've seen Tether build a generational company and probably the most profitable company in the world. But SUIG has taken a really, I think, landmark step to the future, improving what these digital asset treasury companies can achieve by creating Sui USDE, which is the yield-bearing stablecoin, and also USDI, which is the institutional genius compliant stablecoin for the Sui network. So we originated this as SUIG in partnership with Ethena and with the Sui Foundation. And
I saw that news. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And what's really exciting is with that partnership, 90% of the revenues from that stablecoin initiative go back to the Sui ecosystem.
If I am a retail user, if I own $1 amount of the Sui USD on Sui, And am I going to get a similar yield way I can get from somewhere else?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the way in which Athena yield is delivered is through the basis trade, right? And we are white labeling the
Oh, so you guys are white labeling. So basically you guys are the operator of this coin.
Yeah, correct. So we are the counterparty to it. And we have done this in a partnership with Athena and with the Sui Foundation. And it's SUIG that kind of initiated this.
Okay. So basically you will have the cut, like the performance fee.
Yeah.
That is the revenue you are defining, right?
Yes, correct.
Go to the SUIG. Okay.
Yes, correct. So all of the performance, as I mentioned, like 10% will go to Athena, but 90% goes to both ourselves, SUIG, and the Sui Foundation.
Sorry, can I understand? Basically, you will charge a fraction of the yield to the user, and that fraction is sort of the whole pie of the revenue. And among this pie, 10% will go to the USDE and 90% will go to Sui Foundation, SUIG.
Yeah, correct. So it's the same way that, Athena's USDE product works. We're white labeling that. What we're doing here is a very kind of transparent revenue share.
How much you charge for the performance fee from the yield? It's like 20% or 10%?
Yeah, we haven't kind of published that exactly. But as I mentioned, this will be white labeling the Athena stack, and it will be very kind of consistent with how Athena runs their product.
Yeah, well, that's very innovative. This is my first time to hear about a DAT company who is going to do something on top of the staking and hold the coin.
Yeah, so I think like when we set out to build SUIG with the Sui Foundation, the idea was to build the Sui Bank. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you're the home of liquidity in an ecosystem. You provide lending, you provide your balance sheet to different ecosystem participants. You invest in different ecosystem participants. You get a return on your balance sheet for your shareholders, for SUIG shareholders. And ultimately, you're a business that's focused on operating revenue. I think what's important to stress is that when we launched the pipe into the company, it was called Mill City Ventures, which we've rebranded to SUIG. That was a non-bank financial lender, so an actor in the SME credit space. We look at that a market opportunity as a huge $100 billion market potential for DeFi that hasn't really been touched yet.
And on top of that, I have another question regarding the appetite to the DAT company as a shareholder.
Yep.
I think you guys provide a very unique value proposition to your shareholder. But if we take one step back, I found that there are 3 digits DAT over there. And most of them recently is being traded, on par or below NAV.
Yep.
And what is your take on that? How do you see the market appetite and sentiment shifting?
I think that it was a craze over the summer, for sure. And I think that many people jumped into that craze because they saw it as a trade. And I think that that's fine. Everyone has their own
speculative opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Like everyone has got their own economic interests, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure people made quite a lot of money.
Well, thank you for sharing. I only have one last question. A lot of our audience just to kick off their career and just to graduate. So what would be your advice to the younger generation?
The younger generation is so well poised to create like totally new experiences. What I would say is that all young people should be almost like AI experts today. It's so easy to access technology that I think that your competitive edge against the current workforce is so much higher. If you're like a vibe coder or an AI coder at the age of 21, the chance to experiment, to create, the barrier to entry has never been lower. And I would encourage just to get started with these agentic frameworks and just really start creating. I think creating and imagining things that could be and being able to, connect that imagination to a physical, tangible product, that distance is so short now.
Before the computer was invented, there's only 2 kind of a scalable leverage, which is capital and human capital, right? But now, I think past a few decades, whoever can learn how to code, they have the unfair disadvantage. And that's why, in the global top 20 billionaire, most of the new money, they're coders. Of course, they're old money, right? Like LVMH, etc. But, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, most of them, they're coders. But I think there is still a sort of unfair point of the coding is like it has some certain entry barrier. But as I mentioned, in past a few years, coding and also being AI native become sort of democratized to everyone. So in that case, everyone who has your edge, regardless you are good at, liberal arts or cosmetic, etc., just leverage the AI, and then you can get 1,000x or 10,000x of your outputs.
Yeah, I think also we've come from a world where we in many respects are still dependent on like human productivity, like knowledge worker activity, and we've got an internet today that is based around human creators. And I think in the future, you're going to have a world which is kind of like an agentic marketplace where agents can do a ton of things. They can be economic advisors, lawyers, content creators. Like, I think that we are set for a new explosion of internet commerce, or like new GDP of the internet that's based around agents. And I know that's quite an abstract thing to say, but I think you've got to look at the world around us. We're experiencing such incredible growth in these LLMs, which, essentially are based on tokens, right? How many tokens you can get into these LLMs and these parameters, which is then also based on kind of energy and compute. And all of that's increasing exponentially around us. And the future of an agentic-based or autonomous internet where commerce is transacted by these independent and economically motivated agents is really quite like different from what we know today. And you definitely have to imagine something in quite a creative framework to see how that comes together. But once you get it, the value creation we're going to experience in the next 10 years could be really substantial.
I like how you rephrase the crypto and the Web3 as a autonomous internet. I think it's straightforward than the crypto. Yeah, I mean, provide a sort of a definition that, it is sort of a permissionless, and welcome, all the robots jump on this permissionless and autonomous internet to deal with each other in future.
Yeah, and I think, it's quite hard to get the right language to describe this sometimes because it can appear fairly abstract. For agents to take activities, they need to pass the trust boundary. The things I'm talking about are probably kind of captured well in one word, which is programmability. And you need limitless programmability to coordinate events in an autonomous internet. That's what I'm really trying to look for, both at SUIG and also at Karatage. I want to invest in companies that are creating that future, that are unlocking totally new experiences and new industries on the internet. And that's what excites me.
So I think, to wrap up your advice to the young generation, not only be an AI native, but also try to build on something along with Sui.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiring sharing today.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching Build It Up. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. And if you'd like to catch more stories and insights, you can follow me on LinkedIn, X, and of course, right here on YouTube. I'm Bill. See you in the next one.